On this episode of the AMP'D UP211 podcast, we're diving into the powerful story of resilience and faith with Josh Reed. After a life-changing motorcycle accident led to the amputation of his leg, Josh faced an incredibly difficult journey, one filled with pain, isolation, and uncertainty. But through his unwavering faith and support of a close-knit community and his involvement with the Forge Retreat, Josh transformed his pain into purpose. Now, as a leader and mentor, he's helping others find strength in his own struggles. Join us as we explore how Josh overcame his darkest days on the AMP'D UP211 podcast. Josh Reed, good to see you, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a little bit cloudy in LA, but can't complain.
You're in LA. I did not know that.
Yeah,
What part?
yeah. I live in central LA, near Inglewood.
Okay. Yeah.
Although I did used to live in Chicago.
When
It's been
did you
about
live in
5 years
Chicago?
now.
I missed that part of your bio.
Yeah, it was 2014 to 2019. Lived up in Edgewater, so that was a past life back in the two-legged world.
That's cool. I always say that too when I talk about myself with two legs. I say, yeah, in my past life, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it's a perspective change, isn't it? When I feel, and I don't know where you're at with this. How long have you been an amputee?
Going on 5 years.
5 years. Okay. So I've just got a couple years on you. I feel like when I say those things that it's this process where I've really accepted, where I'm at. I don't really see it as, it's not as new anymore. It's not as, I'm not adapting as much. I mean, we're always adapting, right? Because every day is a little different and there's challenges and setbacks and all that stuff. But I feel in so many ways like this is just normal life now. And
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that moment when I can say, yeah, I really don't even think about it at all anymore. It's just who I am. And, I think that's one of the beautiful things about struggle is we slowly put those little pieces together, of resilience. And we get to that sort of those little milestones of, yeah, I'm okay with this. This is okay. There's life,
Yeah.
there's life after a motorcycle accident. And I want to learn a little bit more about, and if you don't mind sharing with our listeners, what happened to you and, subsequent surgeries and things that went on, post-trauma, because I'm not a trauma survivor. My amputation was not necessarily elective, but it wasn't the result, of something similar to what you went through. So if you don't mind sharing that would be great.
Yeah, so I moved out here from Chicago in the beginning of May 2019 because if you stay in the summers of Chicago, you end up looping the next year. So you got to leave at the end of spring when you're still miserable there.
Oh, yeah.
So I came out here in May and I worked in physical therapy as my career and was able to transfer out here, stayed in the same company, pretty easy transition. 6 months later, so November of 2019, I was headed home from the gym. Went swimming with my girlfriend, did a workout with my friend, coming home, and it was using Waze, so it took me on this weird route that I was like, I don't know, never been doing this before, let's do it. And clipped the very end of an entrance ramp curb. And it was about 8:30 at night. The roads were pretty empty. And like I said, I clipped it and it threw me about 100 feet before I came to a stop. Luckily, I was only going about 65 because, those crazy motorcycle riders, they like to get up a little bit more speed.
They go so fast.
But I was going about 65 and came to a stop, and I was still in the entrance lane. And I looked down, and I'll save some of the graphics, but saw my leg was barely attached, and I didn't want to get hit by a car. So I scooted off the lane onto the shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty crazy, especially coming from a world of physical therapy. And I was also a personal trainer, massage therapist, so everything was about the body. I looked down. Okay, how are we going to process this? How are we going to deal with this? And a car came up behind me and stopped. And it was a couple from up in Sacramento, San Francisco area. One was a nurse practitioner, and her partner was a midwife.
Incredible.
And they had emergency tourniquets in the car. And I was down for probably a few minutes before they got there, and losing a lot of blood. When I got to the hospital, they ended up having to put 4 units in me because I was pretty depleted. But laying there, and I'm a Christian, so for the viewers who understand this, okay. But it was very much an audible voice of God being like, if you want to let go, that's okay. Like, we're getting through this. And I was laying there. I was like, no, I'm gonna get through this. I'm not giving up. I'm not letting go. I've still got way more life to do. And it was all right, let's do this then. And that's about the time that the car came up. So really, that moment right there is the only thing that evokes emotion with me.
Yeah.
Everything else I've said time and time again, I very much believe that you should tell your story until you get bored with it.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Because then you deplete yourself of those like strong flashbacks, that PTSD mentality. Like, I've processed, I've accepted, I've gotten through this.
It's an
So I
extraordinary
laid there.
set of circumstances, because for someone like yourself, who's very much not even in your career focus, but also yourself as a person, you're very body focused, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in physical therapy, you're athletic, you're fit, your body is something that um, is very much a part of your daily routine. And to
Mhm.
suddenly be in that situation and look down, and I think the way you put it, which is extraordinary to me, it's like, okay, let's do an assessment. Like, what needs to happen, right, in this situation? It's a problem to solve. Now, most of us would just be screaming in agony, you know,
Yeah.
probably thinking like, okay, these are the last moments of my life, and I can't believe this happened. And it's just that shock and astonishment and just flooded of emotions.
Mhm.
And you were like, okay, wait a minute, what needs to happen right now? How do I care for myself in this particular moment? And I've heard this before, and I think I reacted when you said nurse practitioner. I've known people that have gone through traumas, and nurses show up.
Yeah.
It's like they're
I mean,
there.
it's a godsend.
It to me, if there's any indication that people get put in places for a reason, talking about your faith and God and moving those chess pieces around, let's say. I had an experience. I was actually on my way. This was during the time that I had my own health issues, but I was on my way to a hospital in Chicago, and I'm driving on I want to say it wasn't 294, it was I think it was 290 east, and heading into the city, and I see a girl just laying like on like a portion of a median. She's just laying
Mhm.
there, lifeless. So I get my car to a safe spot where it won't get hit. I walk over, And she's just laying there. And all of a sudden I realize, I look over and her car is buried in some trees and bushes and stuff. Like, I don't know, maybe 150 feet away. So I know this is an emergent situation, but I'm not a medical person. I'm just trying to figure out what's happening. And I'm thinking, okay, she crashed over there. She stumbled over here and she collapsed in the street. I'm not kidding you, Josh. From behind me, running up to us, nurse practitioner.
Yeah, they're amazing.
I was
Amazing.
like, what is the timing? This is
Yeah.
incredible. Who put you here? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do believe there's that divine intervention that can occur when bad things are happening. Because I hear this over and over again. You're not the first person to say, I experienced this horrible trauma and a nurse was, on standby, ready to go. Right. So emergency tourniquet, what happens next?
So it took about a half hour before the ambulance got there. Cut off all my clothes. Biggest group of people I've ever been naked in front of. So laughed about that. Even as I was on the freeway, I was like, this is kind of crazy. I'm very open right now. So they get me loaded into an ambulance, get me to Cedars-Sinai, which I can't say enough good things about that hospital. The physical therapist, the occupational, the surgeons, the nursing staff, the CNAs, everything about that hospital was very good to me, and I'm very thankful for it. So
was there limb salvage, or was there nothing?
They tried.
They tried.
So once we got in the operating room, I was awake through the whole time. We got to the operating room, and the doctors are like, "Hey, we're here. You can let go now." And I was like, "Okay, got it." And I was out, because I knew the minute I started letting go, I was gonna go. So 3 days in ICU, had multiple surgeries. I broke my forearm on the right side, crushed my hand on the left side because it was on my chest. They were trying to salvage the limb because I still had nerve connection as I was going in the ambulance. Like, I told the guy, like, I can still move my toes. I can still feel my foot, because I didn't know if they could maybe do some kind of knee replacement, something. But the surgeon said every time they tried to attach the blood vessels and they opened it up, my blood pressure would plummet. So they weren't able to salvage the limb. It was me or my leg. So I think they made the right decision.
And you ended up below or above the knee?
I'm above the knee.
Okay.
Yeah, my knee took the full impact of everything, just kind of exploded.
Yeah.
So ICU for 3 days, and then I was in the hospital for the next 2 months. I had a total of 13 surgeries. I got infected, so they had to remove some extra meat. They had to shorten the femur a little bit because I didn't want to do a skin graft, because anytime you get a skin graft, that skin is going to be weaker for the rest of your life. Yeah. And I did not want to risk skin breakdown. And a lot of that is due to working in physical therapy, working especially with people with diabetes and their fragile skin already. I didn't want to be in that circumstance.
Yeah.
So got out after 2 months and 13 surgeries later, and had to move houses, ended up having a roommate. Everything was different.
I bet.
Had to learn to drive with my left leg.
Me too.
Had to. Yeah, it's weird, right?
The thing that I found, it's a great thing to bring up because people ask me that all the time. They're like, yeah, I noticed you're a right leg amputee. How do you drive? And, the thing I thought was kind of interesting, the first time, I used an adaptive device to drive a car with my left foot, right away I noticed, wow, my calf muscle, my left ankle is not used to doing this. It's not that I'm a drummer, So I'm used to doing
Mhm.
things with my feet, complex things with my feet. It wasn't so much rewiring my brain that, okay, it's your left foot now. That wasn't the issue. It was more like these muscles are not you take for granted when you drive as a young person and you develop that muscle, right, to drive,
Mhm.
and suddenly you switch to the leg that's been essentially for many, many years sitting dormant on the left
Yeah.
side. Suddenly you're like, hey, you've got to do the work now. And I thought, God, oh, my leg, like it hurt. Where I thought,
Yeah. It
I
gets
don't,
tired, it gets sore.
I'm like, my leg is sore. Why? I was driving. What's
I
that
don't
all
use an
about?
adaptive pedal setup at all, so my foot is crossed over and I'm doing this the whole time. Uh,
Oh, yeah, that's even
I thought
harder.
about switching my car over, but
That's even
it's all good.
harder
Yeah.
because you, and you don't, do you don a prosthesis when you're driving or you take it off?
I keep it on.
You keep it on. But
I
you,
just rotate it and tuck it.
yeah, but you have to basically kind of step, like almost like
Yep.
kind of cross your thigh a little bit, right? In order to do it? Or is it
Yep.
or is it more positioned differently when you're sitting in the
No, I
car?
just shift a little bit, bring the leg over. It's not too bad. I thought about, like I said, throwing on adapter pedals or like a flip flop pedal, I think they call it.
Yeah.
But it was never really worth it.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, that's great. I mean, again,
yeah,
so much of this, I always say, it's this massive exercise in adaptation.
yeah.
Doing all the
And you
things
have
I
to learn
did. Yeah,
so much.
doing all the things I did, but they're different. It's just
Yeah.
different. That's all. And
Hmm.
whatever that is, driving a car, riding a bike, whatever it is, yeah, it's going to feel different. But as we develop those new muscle memories and our brains continually get rewired, like over and over and over again, because someone will say to me, well, what does that feel like riding a bike? And I'll say, well, at first, really, really strange because my
Yeah.
foot, doesn't know where the pedal is. And
Hmm.
I didn't feel comfortable like clipping in or anything. I was like terrified that I was going to fall, especially when I first started riding again. But now, because I've developed so much muscle memory in my residual limb, I know what it feels like when my foot is square on the pedal. I don't even have to look
Hmm.
I don't have to look down anymore. It just happens over time where your brain goes, you have those aha moments where the brain goes, "Yeah, that's what it feels like.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what it
that
feels like."
processing change. And
Exactly.
I will say though, the first time I started riding a bike again, I used to be a pretty avid cyclist. I've done half Ironman,
Wow.
multiple century rides. Like
Next level.
I've sat on the saddle a lot,
Yeah.
and like clipped into the pedal. I've My friend is a bike mechanic, so we have an altered seat for me to fit the prosthetic and to work with that.
Oh, it's
But I
awesome.
started a pedal and I couldn't get out of my prosthetic side, and I was like, and I fell over about going 2 miles an hour, just slowly tipped
two
over, and
2 miles an hour. I've done that too, where you're not even moving so much, but you're just kind of like,
yeah,
boom.
yeah, yeah. My girlfriend laughed at me. You okay? Yeah, all right. I just feel like an idiot. Don't worry. Uh, what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
You have to.
we were on a we were on a bike ride once in the city, because Chicago has some great, bike
Yeah.
paths along
Yep.
Lakeshore Drive and numerous places. And we were with a friend, non-amputee, and he's sort of like charging ahead of us and going in places that I thought, well, that's kind of dangerous, and I think he had more of a mountain biking kind of background, which I'm more of a touring kind of cyclist.
Hmm.
Like I need to be on flat surfaces.
Yeah.
And we got up to this like little hill like in a park where you just wanted to go down, and I'm looking over to my left like there's a way to get down like easily right there. But no, he just kind of forged ahead. And for whatever reason, I sort of stuttered, right? And sometimes when you pause, that's a bad idea. Like you just have to go. right? So I kind of
Yeah.
paused and sort of like got disoriented, and there were people around me, so I just didn't recover from it like right away. And I did one of those, like I went forward like 2 inches and just went boom, just
Yep.
just fell on my side, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh," half laughing. "Are you okay?"
Yeah. The only thing hurt is my pride. That's
Exactly.
it.
I'm like super embarrassed, but I'm
Yeah.
fine.
Yep. Yep.
Talking about going through such a traumatic event, um, I want to take you back to maybe some of what you were feeling in terms of loss,
Hmm.
and what emotional set you experienced coming out of that life-changing event. Um, Certainly there's all the logistical parts of changing your life and changing your routine and all that stuff. But I
Hmm.
want to go, if it's okay, a little deeper into, where was your head at when you got, let's call it home? Like what were you feeling? What were you thinking?
Yeah. So being in the hospital 2 months gives you a lot of time to think. You can only count the ceiling tiles so many times. Um, so I have an uncle who was bilateral below the knee due to jumping on a train back when he was young. And he had a life that was full of just anger, a lifelong victim, never
Mm,
really processed the emotions, strong addictions to alcohol and drugs. And growing up, I saw that, and it was scary for me. It was this is an example of what not to be growing up. So as I'm laying in the hospital, I had to really take time and build a strong platform. And I encourage everybody to do this, especially amputees. Like, build this foundation of what you are going to be and what you are not going to be. And I saw him and how he processed it and how he just ruined lives of people around him because he couldn't get through the trauma. And I was like, I'm not going to be like that. This is hard. It's not fun. I didn't want this, but I'm not going to be a victim. I'm not going to be angry. I'm going to work. I'm going to overcome this. And that's it. Like, that is the foundation that I'm setting today.
yeah,
And I had to really think about it and deeply embed it because I knew I would have to come back to it when days got hard,
yeah,
when things feel like I can't overcome. So really, that is the period where my recovery started. And it's very much, as you know, becoming an amputee is more about the emotional and the mental recovery than it is the physical recovery. Uh, from the days that we have to process the PTSD and the depression, and things are hard, and maybe there's a lot of pain for you thrown in there as well. It can be very overwhelming. And so, if we don't have those boundaries, if we don't have a strong foundation, it's going to crush us.
yeah. It's
Uh,
a really good point, and I think that I was similar um, in that regard. Now, fortunately for myself, I had some time to prepare. And what I mean by
mm,
that is I wasn't victim of a traumatic event. It wasn't just taken away from me suddenly. I kind of knew this was coming. And then
mhm,
my surgery was, to be quite honest, was almost a relief. But nothing takes away the pain of looking down, at that big swollen stump. I hate that word, by the way. I don't know why. It's just like a stigma with me. I always think of a stump as like this ugly thing, right? In your backyard.
mhm,
Yeah, there's a stump out there. Um,
yeah.
so looking down at my residual limb for the first time, and of course it's just this big swollen, kind of mess, and there's this part of you that's gone. And
Mhm,
I recall shortly after I came home having panic attacks, and I would describe it as feeling almost like a tingling in my residual limb, but some signal was going to my brain that was saying something's missing. Like something's missing. Like it's like there's an emergency. Like my brain was almost trying to tell me something's wrong. Something's really, really wrong with you right now. And someone in PT, speaking of PT, had told me, if that's something that you ever experience, it's really important to breathe, and it's really important just to gently kind of massage your limb. It's a way of training your brain to understand that this is where you end now, and it's okay that there isn't a part of you missing anymore. This is just how you're built now. And I really appreciated that because it helped. But I have to be honest, I very much employed what you're talking about initially, which was I'm not going to let this break me. I'm not going to let this change me. I'm going to overcome this. Now, fast forward 5, 6, 7 years. Honestly, Josh, I have moments where I'm very sad. Like I'm very sad about the loss. And I'm, generally, to be quite honest, I'm more active now as an amputee than I was before my amputation in my past life, right? So by all accounts and measures, I'm, fitter than I've ever been. I'm happier. I'm doing more with my life. I'm more engaged. I'm more appreciative. I'm more present. And I'm loving myself like my life depends on it now. So why this wave of sadness? I don't know. And it's fleeting, but I'll just have those moments where I look down and I'm like, wow, that's pretty messed up. Hey everyone, this is Rick Bontkowski from the AMP'D UP211 Podcast. Every so often I come across a product that I just want to tell our entire audience about it. This product is SnapSlide. SnapSlide is a cap that goes on your prescription medications that allows people that struggle with these things to get the cap off much easier.
Introducing SnapSlide. SnapSlide is a revolutionary single-handed closure that solves an unmet need.
I'm paralyzed partially on my left side, so it makes everything difficult day to day. I'd even miss my dosage of medicine because it was just too difficult with one hand. But with this product, I was able to do something that everybody else could do. I could take my dosage and live back to the life I had before my stroke.
If every bottle I ever used was like this, I might even have a smile on my face just taking my meds.
I will be switching pharmacy, I will be switching doctors. I will switch everything to get this bottle.
By allowing for single-handed opening and closing that requires less force and dexterity than current child-resistant closures, our patented solution brings life-changing potential for over 70 million Americans with physical limitations. What's more, if every pharmacy in the U.S. switched to SnapSlide, the plastic reduction each year would save the planet nearly 21 million pounds.
SnapSlide would help so many of my patients and millions worldwide.
SnapSlide, better for all, life-changing for many. Learn more at snapslide.com.
I want to share some testimonials with you. This is not a commercial. This is a product that I do believe in. I want to share it with our community, and I hope you'll check it out. Here's what customers, users of SnapSlide are saying about it. Check it out.
This is the best product I have seen ever.
Can get my medications out easily. Also working as a nurse, this I can just tell you right now, for patients, especially older patients, geriatric patients, this would be brilliant.
Yeah, you have normal mobility. Okay, maybe not.
All you have to do is push and slide. We need this in every pharmacy.
This should be everywhere. Everywhere.
This is just one hand. Great, I loved it.
This should be every medicine bottle.
I'm sick of trying to open bottles that I can't open. This solves the problem.
Absolutely amazing.
I'm a first-time user, just using it. It's very simple to use.
All you have to do is use one finger to open it, which is so much more easy than the old ones.
It's ridiculous that we don't have all of our pill bottles like this.
As an occupational therapist, I see people having difficulties with daily tasks all the time, and opening pill containers is the most frustrating task I hear.
When it comes to opening medication and stuff like that, this is pretty cool. I can just like push it like this and bam, look at that.
And one-handed, no fighting. So these are cool. I like it.
These are so easy to open. I want to be able to do my meds independently. Get these out there. There's a lot of us.
It's easy to open if you're one-handed like me.
I don't want to ask my mom to open my meds.
I can't open pill bottles at all, but this I can open.
Not only for amputees, but there are a lot of people who are having arthritis and different kind of pains on their hand, and they cannot use the bottles.
It is wonderful. So much better than what we have.
Any pharmacy that would have this, where you can easily slide it to open, I would go there.
Put it in my pharmacy right now.
Soy Mirta Colón. Me gustaría tener este producto en mi farmacia. Me facilita la vida.
I wish this was at my pharmacy because it would help a lot of people.
I need this.
We need to make this in every pharmacy available. Wow.
I stopped in my tracks when I saw it because the power of this particular top is life-changing.
SnapSlide, better for all, life-changing for many. Learn more at snapslide.com.
I think that's completely normal though, right?
Yeah.
Like if we have somebody that's close to us die, we don't just stop missing them. And some days you really miss them. And most of the time you're like, you know what? I enjoyed my experiences. I have great memories. I will always love them. I'm okay. But then sometimes it's just that gut punch and you're just like, wow, today is just hard. So I recently got married this spring.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And, you know, thinking about what's the family going to look like? What's our future going to look like? I'm never going to be able to like pick up and run with the kids. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm never going to be able to do that. And sometimes it gets really heavy and kind of sad for things that haven't even happened. Right.
Yeah.
And I think about it and it's like, is it a sadness or is it a fear that I'm not going to be able to fulfill something that they need? Like, what is it? And there's nothing wrong with feeling sad. If you start dwelling in that sadness, if you start letting it overtake you, if you start only thinking about what's not going to be there, then you lose out on so much of what's already there. So much as an amputee, as you know, that we're going to be able to adapt and change and do. And who knows what technology is going to be in 10, 15, 20 years.
It's exciting.
But we can get so stuck in that moment and it'll overtake us. It'll lead to the depression, lead to the despair, lead to all hopelessness. And not only do we stop contributing to the world at that point, we're just slowly dying inside and we're throwing away the life that we've been given. And
which is a gift.
Like, yeah, I mean, I have hard days sometimes, especially the ampiversary comes up. Those are always kind of harder days. You know, I'm very much blessed to be alive. But on those days, I really try to take that step back and be introspective. And especially the first couple of years, it was terrible. And then since then, it's like, okay, what have I done this last year? What have I overcome this last year? What are my goals for next year? And instead of having it being this hard day, it's where am I going?
Yeah.
And it's so much about healing is perspective, accepting what happened, and then changing your view to allow you to keep growing.
Sure.
And jump into my story. That first year, I was like, I'm going to overcome this. I'm not going to let it get me down. And then COVID started. And I was like, okay, well, this sucks, but I got this. And then I got my first prosthetic leg and they wanted to do like telehealth. And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So cancel that. but I'm going to get through this. And my first year, it was the slow decline into isolation, into just, I'm surviving. Isn't that enough? And it was everything I could do to hold on.
Yeah, I hadn't put that together in your timeline. So during some of those really in critical moments of development as an amputee, now given that you were active, you're very much in that physical, fitness space, physical therapy, being a fit young guy, you're probably like, let's go. Like, I need to get back to what I was and doing what I want to do. And then COVID shows up, because everyone's got a COVID story, right? Everyone, everyone has that moment where COVID just arrived and it was like, oh no, like now what do we do? And for someone like yourself, and I appreciate this, man, talk about bad timing. Like, I need to be getting back to normal. This COVID stuff? What, are you kidding me? I can't do what? Telehealth for
I mean, they tried. It was just, it's not working with learning how to walk again. But I went through, set up my short-term goals, my long-term goals. I recorded myself standing, weight shifting, transferring from sit to stand, watched myself walk with crutches, learning to walk without crutches. Everything was recorded. Everything was analyzed. Everything had a plan.
Yeah.
And it was very much like, I have to remove my emotions from this and I have to fix it. And I think I did it the right way. I'm not going to be hard on myself about that. But everything I was doing physically, I wasn't doing emotionally. I wasn't having flashbacks or nightmares. So how could I have PTSD? I'm waking up and showing up and I'm not using pain meds. So how can you say I'm not, I'm making all these excuses for what I'm not doing. And about 1 year later, it was the end of October, my wife now, her name's Grace, she was like, Josh, I can't do this anymore. I love you, but it's killing me. And I was like, but what do you mean? I'm doing everything I can. She's like, I know. And I love you, but I can't. And I was like, I'll do better. And, immediately start bargaining, immediately start that negotiation. And it was terrible, but it was also one of the best things. And she left. I spent a couple days in just pure mourning. And then it was like, why would she want me? Like, what am I actually doing? I'm surviving. I'm not dying. And that's supposed to be good enough.
Yeah.
And it took some time. I found a therapist. I started journaling again. I started really trying to process what it was. And one of the best things my therapist did, like, one, she was like, Josh, just because you don't have nightmares and flashbacks doesn't mean you don't have PTSD. So acknowledge what it actually is. And every time I'd start making excuses or dodging the questions, she would call me out on it. And she's like this upper 70s, 5'0" 100-pound max. And she'd be like, are you ready to stop lying to me? And like, you ready to actually talk about this, or are you going to keep avoiding it? And I had to be called out. And so I started studying, started like processing on how I'm dealing with what I'm actually going through. I started a men's group with some different guys that I've known from different churches. And that's been going on now for about 4 years, where I meet with them once a week on Zoom. And it's just kind of like, what are we going through? How can we help support each other? How can we be vulnerable and build that trust? Because without that support, if you're trying to do it only alone, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And then, so it was all that. And then one thing that Grace had said to me, she was like, Josh, you're so busy running away from something that you're not running to anything. And that sat with me because the path looks the same, but the intention, that perspective behind that is completely different. And so I was like, I have to start running to something. I have to start contributing. I have to be something in this world. I survived and now I'm throwing it away, you know?
Yeah.
And so that first year was learning to walk, learning to ride a bike, learning to lift weights, but emotionally dying. And then after that, it was, I'm actually healing. I'm actually contributing. I'm actually growing. And to the point where, you know, by the time that second year was done, I looked at myself and I was like, you know what? I think I am a better person today. Wish I had my leg. I wish I was as strong as I was. But who I am as a person is completely different. And I owe so much of it to her for saying, Josh, I can't do it.
Yeah,
And
you know, that's a beautiful, I mean, God, what an incredible comeback story. And for her to love you enough to tell you, you know, hey, you know, I see you, and it's not good. And that takes a lot of strength and a lot
took a
of,
lot of courage from her.
yeah, it takes a lot of courage to tell someone, especially after they've gone through something like what you've gone through, because very often people will just back away. Like, oh, yeah, there's a lot. That's a lot. There's a lot there. There's a lot of layers. And for her to just sort of cut through that and say, no, I can't do this. I can't stay on this train with you. And to sort of shake you and get you to recognize that you were just at the beginnings of that emotional process, that healing process, and there was so much work ahead, which was going to require you to get really, really uncomfortable, because so much of that healing, you know, we're men traditionally, you know, the physical part, you know, putting your leg in a prosthesis and building your gait again and, you know, getting active and sweating it out. Men, no offense, that's easy.
Yeah.
Like, we can do that. We you know, we're physical specimens that can overcome those challenges, right? But I think where we tend to lack or fail at times is understanding the emotional component and how much healing is required in that emotional space to make those gains and to flex that sort of muscle again, right? Because so much of that resilience and so much of that, you know, being present and being engaged and feeling all those things that you should feel. Going back to what I had mentioned, which I appreciate your comment. Yeah, I feel like there's still those parts of me that has to revisit disappointment, that has to revisit sorrow, that has to revisit loss and manage it, receive it, right? Accept it, and then start to do the work to heal, to tell yourself it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have that bad day, right? That was a bad day. And you're going to have that again. That's not going to go away. And that analogy with losing someone, it's so incredibly true that, you know, we can celebrate, you know, someone's life and what they meant to us and wax nostalgic about memories of them. But then there's that moment where you go, they're gone.
Yeah.
That's hard. You know, that's when the clouds, you know, come in and cast shade, and it's like, and that feeling probably will never go away. But we learn how to manage it. It's just, it's learning how to cope and get through that stuff. I want to talk about the Forge and the retreat. Tell me a little bit more about how that came about. And then I want to dive into sort of your path and what seems to be it had a profound effect on you.
Yeah, so the Forge is part of Beautifully Flawed. I have notes over here because I was like, hey, what do I need to remember? Because I'm not going to.
I got notes too.
Yes, it's all good. So Beautifully Flawed, was started by Bethany Hamilton, who we know lost her arm when she was a kid from a shark attack, went on to be a professional surfer, lives in Hawaii. She started Friends of Bethany Hamilton in 2007, and then it was rebranded to Beautifully Flawed Foundation, and it started out as a women's retreat, and then it started incorporating men, and that was only in 2020. So January of 2020, the Forge was started, and it was just before the COVID thing started, and so they were able to have one retreat in Hawaii, and then since then it's moved to Del Mar. So I started in 2022 was my first year, so it hasn't been going on very long. I missed the first two, and I heard about it on like a podcast, or I was just scrolling through something, and so I just stumbled across it, and I was like, that would be cool. So it's a Christian organization that's focused on like surfing and being physical. It's with other men who are amputees, and I was like, this could be something that could be beneficial. I'm going to throw myself at it. It costs money that I don't have, but if something's going to be impactful, you need to invest in it.
Yep.
And so I was like, let's throw some money I don't have at this, and let's go. And I'm going to make the most out of it to get my money's worth. Maybe meet a few people. I don't really hang out with amputees. Let's see. And so they split the week into a first half and second half, and alternates between the men and the women. And so I get there, I have 4 days with some people I don't know. I'm one of the older guys there. I'm 37 now, but like most of the guys are like in their 20s, which is fine with me. And I went and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Some of these guys, I hear their story, and there's arm amputees, there's leg amputees, there's bilaterals. I guess it's okay. And so they have lessons, or not lessons, but like they have like speakers. You have a devotion in the morning. You build this camaraderie with this other guys. And like most things, like if you're willing to throw yourself at it, you're always going to get a lot more out of it. You can't force something on somebody who doesn't want it. And so I was like, let's get this. And so like day 2 or day 3, I was like, I think this is really good for my healing. The focus on that week was really about seeing ourselves for who we are, and really trying to find our identity. And that was really big for me that year, especially because that's where some of those areas that I was really struggling with.
And being around amputees like that, I have to be honest, because I went to some support groups shortly after my amputation, and it was difficult for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are my people now, and I very much embrace it, and I have great engagement with our audience, with amputees that I meet. If I go to conventions, whatever, I feel very much at home. But initially for me, it was kind of tricky, and I don't know why. But at the same time, do you feel like that was, I don't know, like an opportunity for you to kind of get out of that comfort zone and do some things, experience some things where you tapped into some energy that maybe you didn't know was there?
Physically, not really. It was fun, but I have a background in being physically demanding on myself. And so there's like surfing, there's wake surfing, there's like doing like jujitsu or doing CrossFit stuff. So none of that was new. Since being an amputee, I've done jujitsu for like 1.5 years. I'm not in it right now. I've gone surfing, I've done bikes. So like nothing was really new. But what was new was talking with these people who are dealing with some of the same problems, that I look at myself and I don't recognize myself. Like, I'm not ashamed of my scars. I'm not ashamed that I don't have a leg, but sometimes I don't recognize myself, like you're saying. Like, I stand in a mirror and I'm just like, who are you? You know,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning stages. So the retreat was great that first year. And I was like, I want to get more involved in this. And so reached out to a couple of the people that help run it. And then last year I picked up a leadership role in it, and I spoke to the group once and kind of filled in and helped in some of those areas that I thought it could be better. And from my perspective, like, it was a group of guys where most of them were returning. And so even more camaraderie was built.
Sure.
And we're able to bring in the few new guys. And in this sense, then, as we prepare for this next retreat in a couple months, I'm taking more of a leadership, planning what the whole theme is going to be, planning on like what the verses of the week, who's going to be speaking, how many times am I going to be speaking, like what does it look like as we continue to grow this, because it's still just a baby. You know, this is only year 5 of the retreat. And I think every year it's gotten better. I hope this year's even continues to grow on that and continues to be better for my own pride's sake. Because I don't want to be taking a leadership role and have it not be good. But really, it's pushing yourself into the uncomfortable, especially as men, like you said. Like, we can face physical demands. We look forward to it. That pain, that pressure, that drive is very part of us. But it pushes you also to be vulnerable with these other guys.
Yeah.
And say, man, I'm also struggling with this, whether it's depression or anxiety or addiction or whatever it is. It's helping open that up and give you a platform to speak on, to be accepted on, and show yourself with these guys who very much want to be there and support you.
Where would someone need to go to learn more and engage?
So on all the platforms, it's at Beautifully Flawed Foundation. And then on Instagram, it's at Forge Men's Retreat.
Got it.
So those are where you can go. It's also beautifullyflawedfoundation.com. And registration is closed for the year, but there are still openings. So if somebody hears this and they're like, wow, that could be good for me or my friend, cousin, whoever, let them know. Direct them to us. We are very much a year-round support. There's a great community. We still, though, have a couple months before the retreat, so there still is time.
No, that's awesome.
But really, the more you can do to own your situation, to not have pity on yourself, but I mean, at the same time, have an understanding of what you're going through and accept that.
Yeah.
And really just drive yourself to healing. Let those people surround you. Let the people uplift you, but own your circumstances.
Oh, absolutely. I know we're running out of time, but I want to talk a little bit more about how your faith has played a role in, so much of this, and, provided a beacon, of light for you to keep you on this path. What do you see faith as playing a role in this experience for you?
So I grew up in church. I grew up family devotions. I grew up going to a Christian school. It was very much completely every aspect of my life, which means I didn't really put the value on it that it deserved. You just take it for granted. Went to college, had college years. Living in Chicago, and I was riding my bike home down the lake one night. It was like 11 o'clock, pitch black, and I just kind of broke, and I was like, what am I doing with my life? There's so much hypocrisy in my life. I'm always wearing a mask. I know who I'm supposed to be, and I'm great at pretending to be who I'm supposed to be. But what am I doing? And so that was my first real wake up call to looking at my life and claiming this faith, this life for myself, and not just because it's what I'm supposed to do. And then got more involved with my church that I was going to there. They had a pastor who was really focused on developing men in society. And that was kind of put on me. And I very much shifted my focus of there are not enough men in society. There's a lot of adult males, but there's not a lot of men. And I can't tell women what they're supposed to be or what they're supposed to do or the role they're supposed to fill.
Well, you could try.
I can, yeah. Because, that's going to be so successful. But I can talk to other men. I can challenge them. I can help lead them. I can help guide them. I can help grow with them. And so got more involved in that, started learning, started studying, started watching videos, started healing, moving out to LA, got more involved with that. Like I said, I started the men's group. And as I was going along, your faith is challenged. And if it doesn't get challenged, you're not going to get stronger. Just like in the gym. You don't work a muscle, that muscle's not getting stronger. And so losing my leg, that's a big step of faith. Going through a breakup, that's a big step of faith. Losing a job, that's a big step of faith. And so there's these constant challenges, and it's hard. And some days it feels like you're going to fail. But then you look back over the last 6 months, over that last year, preparing for the next year, and you're like, I've gotten through that. God was with me in that. I had a support system that came out of nowhere, like that nurse who shows up.
Yeah.
I had friends that showed up. I had a pastor who showed up. I have people call me and be like, hey, I haven't talked to you in years. And that support is there. And then I made phone calls and Facebook messages to people and be like, man, 2 decades ago, I was a real jerk and I'm sorry. And I've been holding on to that. Man, it's okay. Like, whatever, it's fine. I'm like, okay. So I was able to unload some of that, just the things that you do growing up, and I have to forgive myself for it. But I also wanted to let people know, hey, I'm sorry. And so through the last 10 years, it's been a healing process internally. It's been a growing process, especially spiritually. And, it's good days, it's hard days, it's days where you don't do what you're supposed to do, and days where you do what you're not supposed to do. But it's like, this is who I am. This is where I'm at right now, but it's also not where I have to stay.
Right.
And so we keep pushing. I keep growing. And it's very much been that pillar, been that comfort, been that part of my life that I know God's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And that, that can tether us. And although, like you're saying, we operate in kind of a wide set of lanes, sort of a wide highway, but we need to be going in a particular direction. And having that, tends to keep us at least in that forward movement kind of place. And having that, those affirmations of, why we're here and what we're meant to do, not only for others, but for ourselves. And I think it's an incredible demonstration of strength and, you're correct, faith, and pressing into that, trusting in that, and it being a guide, So I would encourage everyone to check out the Forge Retreat. And Josh is obviously out there on socials, and I'm truly inspired by your story. Who was it? Hugh Boyle that introduced us.
Yep.
Fantastic guy. Really, really appreciated his story as well. And
it was great listening to that podcast.
Oh, I appreciate that. And, I, of course, want to thank you, but also go a step further. And I so appreciate your transparency and what you sort of bring to this table and your vulnerability. And giving of yourself and your emotions. And I like to think myself that all of this sharing, this is what being a man's all about. And we, people tend to think that, men are not capable of what we're doing right now. And I say, no, men, we're emotional creatures, and we're always seeking places to, emotionally dump, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're super well known for the hard physical stuff, but most of us have a tender heart, and we're trying to navigate those spaces as well. So please give us the room to do so. And, I appreciate what you bring to the community. I appreciate what you're doing with your group. And I would encourage you to stay on this advocacy path and just continue to be the rock star that you are in this amputee space.
Thanks, Rick.
Such a pleasure to meet you. Everyone, that's going to wrap it up for us. That is Josh Reed. Please check him out. My name's Rick Bontkowski. This is the AMP'D UP211 Podcast, and I want to wish everyone health and happiness. We'll see you next time.